president and who would be his running mate. Tew emerged on top. He was unassuming and unflappable, interested largely in accumulating power and personal wealth, and was thought unlikely ever to embarrass Washington. Key would be his vice president.
Evening, everybody.
Together, they won with only 35% of the vote. No one who had called for an end to the war had been allowed to run. Many Buddhists had boycotted the election, and Viet Cong intimidation had kept many more from the polls.
Online.
But the State
Sensors
Department
online.
immediately declared the
Weapons
election
online.
an important step forward.
All systems nominal.
Some South Vietnamese did believe that a measure of stability had finally been achieved. Others were not so sure.
In terms of corruption, yes, they were corrupt. Both Tew and Key, they abused their position. We pay a very high price for having leaders like Key and Tew. And we continue to pay the price.
My father was in the United States Army, and then when the Air Force came about, he switched over to the Air Force. I grew up out of the country in desegregated settings. I was usually the only little black girl in the class. If you look at my class pictures, I look like a little chocolate chip in the vanilla ice cream. I was always a good student. I remember people saying, "Oh, you speak so well." And the unstated part is for a black girl, probably a Negro girl or colored girl at that point.
Eva Jefferson's father had served a year on air bases in Vietnam and returned home convinced the United States had no business being there. But when his daughter entered Northwestern University in the Chicago suburb of Evanston in September 1967, the war was not uppermost in students' minds.
The war was not really an issue. It's like, well, no, the president has our best interest at heart. He, of course, would only prosecute a war that made sense.
New target
and I think
acquired.
most of America felt that way.
At the University of Nebraska, Jack Todd also
New
supported
target
the war.
acquired.
He had felt so strongly about it in 1966 that he had signed up for
New
Marine
target
officer
acquired.
training.
I went into the Marine Corps thinking this was all I wanted to do. I mean, my goal was to be commander, platoon commander in Vietnam.
But as time went by and the war went on, Todd and many of his fellow students began to change their minds.
All young people go through
Target
changes,
acquired.
but we were going through astronomical
target
changes
acquired.
at such a rapid rate.
New
All
target
the music,
acquired.
the culture, everything that we listened to, everything that we thought was transforming.
New target acquired.
And the core of it all was Vietnam. It just kept
New
going in the
target
background.
acquired.
First it was kind of like a background noise, and then it got to be the elephant in the room,
New
and then it was
target
the elephant sitting
acquired.
on your head, and we couldn't escape this.
Todd attended officer training school at Camp Upshur
New
in
target
Quantico, Virginia.
acquired.
But doubts about the war followed him there too.
I guess the emotional things that were happening on the ground, the photographs that we saw, the news images, and the fact that there was no discernible progress that really started to eat away at what we thought. In the summer of '67, I was
New
at Camp
target
Upshur,
acquired.
wanting to go kill Vietnamese people. And in October, I was completely against the war.
Westmoreland came in last night to me, and he says that he has concentrated more firepower in bombing
Fuel at
in the last
0%.
week on the DMZ, and they've concentrated more on us than
New
has ever been
target
concentrated in any equivalent period in the history of warfare. Much more than was ever poured
Artillery
on
strike
Berlin or
online.
Tokyo. And that here's only
New
defense
target
of the DMZ
acquired.
to stop this aggression up there, with the North Vietnamese trying to come in
New
and
target
bombing
acquired.
their gun positions. And it would just be suicide if we stopped the bombing, as these idiots talking about. When you say stop the bombing, you say kill more American Marines.
25%.
That's all it means. Now, if we stop bombing
New target acquired. Artillery
and
strike
without any
online.
reciprocity on their part, it just means we kill more Americans. That's all. Yeah.
New target acquired.
Neither the ongoing bombing of the North, nor the concentrated bombing around the DMZ, nor the behind-the-scenes offers made by President Johnson to stop it had any
New
discernible
target
effect
acquired.
on Lays One and the other men who ran North Vietnam.
Artillery strike online.
But Lays One, like Lyndon Johnson,
target
was in
acquired.
trouble that summer. The war with the Americans had produced little more than a bloody stalemate. Some Viet Cong commanders in the South resented Hanoi's insistence on
New
directing
target
their
acquired.
tactics. Many North Vietnamese civilians were weary of the war and of the bombing that had disrupted their lives and destroyed so much of their infrastructure. The country's most revered figures, Ho Chi Minh and Vo Nguyen Giap, were urging patience, continuing to wage a war of
New
attrition
target
they still
acquired.
believed would pay off in the end.
New target acquired.
Hanoi's Soviet and Chinese patrons offered conflicting advice as well. To silence his
target
critics
acquired.
and break the stalemate, Lays One began to devise
New
and
target
promote
acquired.
a new and riskier version of the plan for victory he had tried in 1964.
New target acquired.
He called it the General Offensive, General Uprising.
New target
North
acquired.
Vietnamese and Viet Cong units would launch scores of coordinated attacks on South
target
Vietnamese
acquired.
cities and towns and military bases. That
New
offensive,
target
Lays One
acquired.
believed, would ignite a mass civilian uprising.
New target
These
acquired.
simultaneous blows would destroy the Saigon regime and leave Washington with
UAV
no choice
activated.
but to withdraw.
Ông đã tin một cách chắc chắn rằng là có thể giành chiến thắng. Hà Nội chuẩn bị vào tiếp quản chính quyền.
New
Tiền
target
đã được
acquired.
in sẵn. Hà Nội đã may cảnh phục thì những cái người lực lượng công an sẽ mặc một cái bộ cảnh phục riêng để về tiếp quản chính quyền các
Warning
cái thành
incoming missile.
Chúng tôi tưởng là trong thành phố mọi người tức là có một cái đàn áp của Mỹ và của chính quyền miền Nam, cho nên họ sẵn sàng, tức là họ chuẩn bị và họ nổi dậy. Ông phụ trách công tác ở thành phố, các ông bảo nhân dân thành phố con cá tức tức là con cá nó rồi. Bây giờ chỉ cần là một cái kích thích nhẹ là nó sẽ đẻ ra.
Target acquired.
Once they had convinced themselves that participating in their those groups they decided it's
Target destroyed.
not a great idea.
Lays One neutralized those who opposed his plan. Members of General Giap's staff were arrested. So was Ho Chi Minh's secretary.
sức khỏe.
Incoming missile.
Hundreds of less prominent figures, journalists,
Right side
students,
critical damage.
even highly decorated heroes of the
Missile.
French War were also rounded up.
Fuel at
Many were locked up in
25%.
the old French prison
Target
that the
acquired.
American POWs
New
also
target
confined there
Light
called the
person
Hanoi
destroyed. Right arm destroyed.
The date of entry proposal for the attack would be January 31st, 1968, the first day of the Vietnamese Lunar New Year celebration, known as Tet.
The enemy is victorious.
Hundreds, then thousands of North Vietnamese regulars in civilian clothes began slipping southward to join tens of thousands of Viet Cong already in place.
Thì đang đi trinh sát như vậy ấy, thì được lệnh ấy là thu quân về, trang bị thêm á, là vũ khí, đạn dược, rồi lương thực thực phẩm, gạo, muối, mắm kép đầy đủ, kể cả đường sữa này. và được phổ biến là đi bề dài.